Kvalitná architektúra sa nezaobíde bez kvalitného stavebného materiálu. Všetko pre vašu stavbu a tento podcast vám prináša Wienerberger.
Welcome everybody. You are listening to podcast about architecture called How I Met My Architect. You can follow this podcast also on Instagram. Usually this podcast is in Slovak language, but right now I'm in Barcelona for 2 months. And this is a really good opportunity to record some episode with some Spanish architect. So I'm very happy that today I can talk very friendly with Barcelonian architect Mar Santamaria. Hi, Mar.
Thank you, Peter. It is my pleasure to welcome you in Barcelona and to be in the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to introduce you because it's quite complicated. I just said that you are an architect and you have a studio and web page called 300,000 kilometers per second. But please introduce you to us.
Here in the office, we really like to be called urban planners, but I think that we do more than that, in the sense that what we mainly do in our time is to analyze cities, and it's to try to bring a new complexity regarding the tools and regarding the topics to urban planning. So we are not a traditional urban planning office. In our team, we have architects, we have planners, we have lawyers, but also we have data scientists, we have people that really, really knows how to deal with data and with information, and that makes a new approach to understanding the complexity that we have today in cities.
Yeah, it's very complex indeed. And when I clicked on your webpage, as I told before, like 300,000 kilometers per second.net, I could see like the analysis of the cities, especially Barcelona, but I'm sure that you are working on some others. But it's very complicated. So please tell us something, what kind of data we can find there and how you are collecting those data.
If we can go, I would say, a step back. I was raised as also Pablo, that he's also the co-founder of the studio, in a traditional school of architecture, where we had really the opportunity to learn from great professors such as Oriol Bohigas, Manuel de Sola Morales, and a long tradition that we have in the School of Barcelona of good urban planning. But the approach was related to understanding the city and understanding the complexity of the city in terms of urban form. No? So in 2014, it's the moment I make again a step back, where the transparency laws in Europe start somehow being enforced, where the first data set in the public administration have arisen. So that means that at the very beginning of the office, we were in front of an opportunity, which was having data that we never had before. Data that we collected from public data sources, data that we could also collect from private companies, data that also the citizens stream using the social networks or moving around the city. We start having sensors. We start having the first satellite images in a really good resolution. So that means that at the same time we were thinking that the tools we had were not enough. So we tried to take advantage of these new technologies, this new data that we have in front of us, to change the way we were approaching cities. And I think this is interesting when we could make these shifts. We really like Richard Sennett, it's thinker, sociologist, I don't know how to call him, when he says that this difference between the city, in French, la ville et la cité. So a city which is related to form and to the physical part of things. And then we have another city which is related to behavior, how citizens are using the city, how they move around. So with data, we could talk about these two realities. And that's why we engage in this path, no? And after 10 years, we are changing a little bit, the data we are using to make the analysis and to make the projects. But our motto is trying to understand the city in the most complex way we can.
You were talking about the data from 2014. Now we are in 2023. Now you have also the access to the same data, or I hope it should be like some others.
At the very beginning, the data coming from the public administrations, it was not the most meaningful data at all, no? So we had data about the number of inhabitants that we have per block, or we have some information about mobility. What was really interesting at the very beginning was the data coming from the citizens, from the social networks. We have made, for example, really crazy analysis on mobility in the city of Barcelona for the Metropolitan Master Plan that it's actually being approved 10 years after. And with data from Twitter, we were able to describe how people was moving around the territory, and with a huge detail, and day and night, hour per hour, So that was really crazy, and really new, And we had a new perspective of the city and the territory. So that was somehow a pathway, but within the years we have seen how public bodies have evolved. They even start working with partnerships with private companies. As for example, we have now in Spain a really interesting experience where the state has bought data to the telcos, and this data then after it's open for use, for open use. So we have been seeing how these public bodies have been evolving this relation with data and trying to release more and more and more information. On the other side, everyone has understand that data has a huge value. So that means that some data that we could access before, today we cannot access because it's private data, or because some of the companies have really understood that that has a value that people should pay for. And this is the point when we are today, when we have discovered where the opportunities are, what we can do with data. But on the other side, data sets are like disappearing or getting more difficult to access.
We are now talking about some data, which for me is still a little bit abstract. So let's make it simple in terms that I can imagine that you need to put this data to some form.
Have a lot of examples of how we translate geolocated data into maps and cartography. That is something that architects, we are super familiar with.
Exactly. When I open Carta de Historica, please click on this webpage and check it, because there is like ton of work, and it's a really nice map how Barcelona was growing up from the beginning. So it's really interesting. I was not able to understand how it's possible to make it, because Barcelona is super huge city and it was like tons of informations.
But at the same time, we had really good cartographers. And that means that we had the information, So it was about digitizing it and putting it together. But there are cities in the world that doesn't have, I don't know, in your city, how many maps or historical maps do you have, But in Barcelona, we have drawn the city since the Romans mostly, So that means that we have, in this case, a lot of information.
When you will do this map and you will put it to the form, you will provide it to some architects and other urban planners. Can I imagine it like this?
Exactly. Actually, I would say that most of the times we are the mediators, in the sense that, for example, when we are working for a public administration, I will use a really simple example. Let's take, for example, we have here in Barcelona a huge problem with air pollution. We have a fine of the European Union for so many years because we are overpassing the recommended levels and the legal levels, actually, of the air quality. And in this case, for the Catalan pavilion of the Venice Biennale, what we did actually was to collect all the data that was available regarding this problem of air pollution, and we put it into a cartographic format. That is something that after we share, in this case, with the scientific community that has provided data, with the citizenship, with all the people that was in Venice, but also with the decision-making part of the process, And that's where cartography and data become really powerful. When you can create evidence on a problem, you can put it on a map, you can identify the areas where this problem it's bigger. So we are quite unique for the moment, but we have seen with the years and this pedagogy that always it's needed when you start to do something new, that people is starting to change the mind and understand that decision making should be, in cities more complex. So now a lot of institutions, like from the local governments to huge institutions like the World Bank or the the European Bank of Investments or so, they are using these methodologies. So I think it's something that it's going to be extended in the future.
But do you know that how many architects, when they are doing something, for example, here in Barcelona, is asking you for these data?
That's a really nice question. We get to know when we meet people that actually they are using tools like Carta Histórica. A lot of people, a lot of students, a lot of architects are using this tool that you mentioned, that is this cartography of the city. We know that also a lot of people is using one of our first maps, which was a map of the heritage of Barcelona. In 2014, Barcelona didn't have a map of heritage or like a good map of heritage, so we managed to somehow collect information from the city council sources. We put it again together because there was a technical problem in there that make it kind of difficult to get the data. Then we published this, and it was huge because a lot of citizens, a lot of people were, oh my God, there is this building, in front of my home. I didn't know that was heritage. So a lot of people is using data. They can analyze it themselves. They can really, check if they want. They really can do some other stuff with the data that we are producing. So we try to publish everything when it's possible, of course, with anonymization and so on. But I think that this part of using open tools, open data, it's a new trend that we really need to embrace.
That's the only question when the data are open to everyone. What's your financial model,
Mainly work by the public. For the public. So we work with local councils, we work with, for example, with institutions like the Ibero-American Inter-American Bank of Investment, the European Bank of Investment, the City Council of Copenhagen, of Bologna.
So the requests are coming from them.
Exactly. But on the other side, we try also to have our own projects, in the sense that we understand also that if we want to create this change in the public policy making, which comes at the very end, we imagine it always like a kind of pyramid, If we want to go to the real change in cities, we need to start from the base, and the base is about communication, it's about pedagogy, it's about creating really this understanding that we need to make the change, So we have some projects in the office where we try to finance ourselves, either because we ask for European funding or like national funding schemes to create sometimes these projects that for us are really important because we want to engage with the citizens. I'm going to put an example to really make it easier for the audience to understand. There is a project which is called Urban Citizen Learning. We make this project which actually wants to engage the citizens in evaluating the urban environment. So we as architects now, we are creating these really complex descriptions of the environment, but we need to have the perceptions of citizens on the type of city that we're creating, if they do like, if they would prefer a city with more green, with less cars. So there is a huge part of the understanding and the perception of the city that for us it's complementary to all the quantitative work that we create with data. In Barcelona, we managed to have more than 40,000 responses to the experiment. So that's in Madrid, it was 200,000 when we make it in Madrid. So it's a huge amount of votes that really we were able to get. And actually what we ask the citizens is that they choose between two photographs, which is the street they would prefer to live. And with this system, what we create is a kind of training data set. It's like the technical name, but it's a data set of photographs where the citizens have decided that this street is better than the other one. No? And with that, we train an artificial intelligence algorithm that helps us then after to understand which are the parameters in our quantitative model that were more important in this decision process for a citizen. And for us, this is really important, to start creating knowledge and to start creating a kind of consent also in the users of the city that are the citizens, no? And how we can create these environments which are livable and where people would like to live, no? And this is a self-promoted project where we try to then after go and find the financing. But it's super complementary to the other work that we did. And we really believe it's a way to create really this base of the pyramid that we need.
This could be an option that they should evaluate something, but is there some other how they can participate in these projects?
Yeah. I'm talking about Barcelona because it's the city where we make the most of the urban planning, and I think we are quite a mature city in terms of citizen participation. When I was a student, I've never in my life listened about making citizens participate into something. No, I think it's also one of these new trends that we have somehow in urban planning. There is a book that it's called The Nightmare of Participation. No? So we can go from one stream, we understand that citizens, we need to make them participate, but participation cannot become something naive. No? So we need to make that this process is something kind of sequential. So we understand participation when we are trying to make an action plan on where we have drafted a master plan like in Ciutat Vella, as an essential process where we need to first understand who we need to ask. So we need to really build a kind of map of the stakeholders. And this is really key to understand who we need to engage in this conversation. Then there is another step that for us is really important that starts with the validation. So we can create, as we did in Ciutat Vella, or we have done with a big master plan in the mountain of Montjuic here in Barcelona. We can create an analysis, but we need to share with the citizens and understand, these areas of conflict that we are identifying in the maps because we have the complaints of the police. This is the same that you, on your everyday, you have problems with. And we engage in this first conversation, So changing information, validating, and getting the knowledge of the citizens. Then we can go a step further, and we can ask, what if we start proposing, this type of solution or this type of action? Do you think this is a high priority? It's a low priority? It's something that we need to do tomorrow, or we can wait a little bit? No. So this idea of prioritizing together what's the most urgent, and then at the very, very, very end, it's about receiving the proposals from the citizens. No, it's how we see that we need to create a maturity in this process. You cannot ask a citizen you find him or her in the street and you say, what you will do to change? No, we need to build little by little relations of trust. We need to engage in technical conversation. We need to learn some common vocabulary to communicate. So it's a process, no? We have done a really nice experience, for example, here also with the neighborhood in Poblenou, where the city council was transforming a street, Pere Quart. Actually, it's one of the main streets in Poblenou, and the neighborhood association was not quite confident about the proposal, so they asked us to create a survey to understand better how the people was using the street, and if the urban design need to somehow satisfy different needs. And that, for example, we did with a survey where each citizen drawing a map which was their pathway in this in the neighborhood, and that was really nice because we get some conclusions on how we need to design the street for the children, for the women, for the old people, And they really became part of the conversation. At least I think it's important to give the people the skills and make them participate and offer them the possibility to participate.
Thank you very much for introducing you and your studio to this topic. And right now, when we are locating in Barcelona, you are working in Barcelona, let's talk about Barcelona. So let's start from the beginning, that Barcelona, in terms of urban planning, it's very famous for Eixample. That's the urban structure made in 19th century. It's the proposal of Ildefons Cerdà. So please tell us, from your point of view, some positives and negatives of these very rigid urban structure.
I think one of the most positive values is that really it creates a structure where everything can happen. And it has proven to be a really good strategy in the sense that we have created a city which is compact, it's dense, and it's mixed. And it's really rich. If you go to the main Eixample around Passeig de Gràcia, you can see a type of city that it's very much different than the one that we are looking now, in the window, which is also Eixample, So this way of understanding that cities should have a kind of a structure, and with the time it's gonna complete, I think it's something that it's really interesting, and providing a kind of equal canvas where the different epochs are gonna adjust it, and this is very relevant because now we have these different realities in Eixample, and for example with the superblocks strategy, what it's gonna happen, it's this equal or like this hierarchy that makes every street more or less equal. It's going to break up because we are going to have streets where we have pedestrian areas. We are going to have streets that are going to remain with the cars and the public transport and so on. So that means that we are going to break up this hierarchy, and we are going to have one type of street and another one, and that it's going to create imbalances in this fabric.
But that's something what is actually happening already right now in the city. When I'm passing through the city with my bike, I noticed that some of the streets are actually rebuilding, and a new public space will be there because I think in Barcelona there is still a lack of the public space.
Sure.
But people, they use it a lot. I just think that it's really tough to create a new public space in Barcelona which will not work, because there is so lack of public space that it has to work all the time. Or that's my short analysis.
I really appreciate that you have this perception, because it seems that in Eixample we have a lot of public space, and that's true, because if you take one street, you have a section of 20 meters, then it's for the cars, then it's for the pedestrians, which makes a 50% of public space. What we don't have is like huge green areas, squares. And really, it's an area where the density is so high, because one of the positive values is that It's that density that makes the city, more efficient in terms of resources, So, but the relation, seeing, from a perspective, of climate change and that we need to cool down the city and that we need to reduce mobility, it's something that it's totally obsolete. But at the same time, as we have, this kind of structure or infrastructure that was created by Cerdà, it's something that we can modulate and we can change. But of course, the risk is there, and we need to understand that. Or at least, I would like to think that the way we are going to transform our cities, it's by creating public space, but at the same time having urban planning as a kind of shield. It's going to module these transformations because for example, one of the results of this huge operation is going to be the gentrification, because we will have nicer streets. And of course, we are going to have terraces, we are going to have more noise, we are going to have higher rents. So there is a kind of ongoing consequences that if we do these operations together with urban planning, maybe we can control better these negative side effects. On the other side, for example, one of the learnings that we get from this project that we presented in the Venice Biennale, it's that maybe we have reached a level of density which is quite limited in Barcelona, because we are creating these externalities which are related, for example, with air pollution. Eixample is one of the most polluted areas that we have in the city of Barcelona. And it's because the same urban hierarchy that makes, for example, that the wind in Barcelona goes from sea to the mountain. But on the streets which are parallel to the sea, we don't have wind. So air pollution remains in the street. And that makes that in one direction, everything, it's more clean. But on the other one, we have really, a lot of problems, because we have one of the street which is half polluted than the other half of the street, So density, it's really good, but also it's creating a lot of problems, So I think we are at a point where in urban planning, we can add scientists and we can add other disciplines that are explaining us some things about the city that we don't know and that we can use to transform it. And that's really relevant.
Air pollution, as you mentioned a couple of times, is this one of the biggest problems in a city, or there are some others?
I would say it's one of the biggest problems that we have. Everything which is related to environment, I think it's a pressing issue in Barcelona. It's about air pollution, it's about noise, and it's about this idea of intensification of the city. You said it. You're a city where the public space is always full. You are always a lot of things happen, in a space, and that creates a kind of tension, and it's something that we have seen, as a kind of problem of the last years. It's this intensification of activity in city. We are not an American city where you have the suburb where the people is sleeping, and then you have on another city the offices and so on. Everything happens in the same space, And that makes that sometimes we have a lot of intensity of things happening. And that creates, for example, a lot of mobility around the city, because we have people around moving because they need to shop somewhere and work somewhere. And so we have different phenomena.
But the density will be still there. The structure will be still here. Yeah. So do you know about some small solutions for that? How to improve the situation?
For example, a solution that it's very much in the field of urban. It's true that we cannot demolish the Eixample. That wouldn't make. For me, we will need to go to solutions like London, like having a really low emission zones where if you want to enter the city, you need to pay. It's about this. It's about improving the public transportation. It's about really changing, the way we are distributing the things in the city, not to create so many internal mobility. So I think that here there is a pathway that we need to follow up. It needs really to get out from the city. I think we need to be radical on that.
But for me, I was quite surprised that in this density, because Barcelona has a really big density, because the area is around 100 kilometers square of the city, or the population density is around 16,000 people per kilometer square, which is pretty dense. But I didn't see that much traffic jams. That for me, the Barcelona is not like stuck in a traffic jam, which is cool.
I think you were really lucky, in the sense that I think that it's something we still working, but and it's also I think one of the pending issues that we have in the city, which is the relation with the territory. There are a lot of traffic jams at 7 in the morning in Las Rondas. I'm pretty sure, of course, about. I think that we are a city that we walk a lot. In the sense that we have been able to create in certain areas in the city, not everywhere, this paradigm that now it's being so called as the 15-minute cities, but it's about the city of proximity. So Barcelona really, in the way that it's configured, in most areas have a good balance of things, that makes people not move that much in the city. But on the other side, regarding, for example, the workspaces, we have huge mobilities inside the city. So it's something that we need to still rework. And of course, understanding that we are not alone. We are a part of a metropolis with other 35 municipalities, and there are issues related to the public transportation, the train, that we need to really be working on that.
Let me ask you one more question, and this question is related to the big events which happened in Barcelona. One of those big events was like in 1888, the big exhibition, and also the Olympic Games in 1992. So how those big events affected the city?
Actually, they have created a kind of culture or like a kind of a strategy to use the events to transform the city. It's a little bit how we have been working for so many times, to use an exhibition, Olympic Games, the Forum of Cultures, to transform areas of the city. So the way we function, it's going to really need to change, and go for strategies of transformation which are more accurate, where you need really a more special precision. You were asking me in the previous question, how can we reduce density? For example, we could forbid to divide flats in Eixample. In Eixample, we have really huge flats of 200 and more square meters that are divided and then rent to normally for tourist apartments. And that doubles the density that we have in the urban fabric. So there are strategies coming from the urban planning side that we can use to really control this density. So this idea that we as a city need to use more intelligent strategies to transform. It's not about constructing, it's about transforming what we already have.
For example, the Olympic Games transformation, because there was the huge transformation of the port, for example, and that was one of the great examples how to do it, because the Olympic Games are the huge investment, and we know from the other cities like Rio de Janeiro or Athens in 2004 that it was terrible. That after the Olympics, the sports facilities and all of the equipment which was built or rebuilt was quite devastated afterwards. So that's a really good example that Barcelona, this kind of stuff, handled very well.
I think the way it was handled, it is important in the sense that it was not only a transformation that was imposed or run by the public side, but we managed to create these partnerships between public and private, and that make it possible to make these huge operations in the city. And on the other side, I think that they were able to reconnect with some sensibilities that the citizenship has, no? So this idea of recovering the beach, recovering the sea, recovering the Montjuic mountain, there were like huge values that the city have that somehow we have lost, no? And I think that here, in the way that they did it, it was very much connected to these citizen sensibilities, no? And they are spaces that really then after the citizens use and use in a very intense way. So, yeah, I think it's a combination of both.
For today, for example, which neighborhoods or which part of the city are like developing, or which neighborhood has potential today? Because when you see the map, you can see the morphology that on the west side there is a mountain, on the east side there is a sea, and on the north and on the south there is like a lot of logistic areas, like a little bit industrial. So you have the really dense city in the middle, so you are in a little bit like a prison. So where are those developing areas?
That's where I say that it's really crucial to work the relation with the territory, because at the very end, not everyone could live in Barcelona. We are limited in space. So that means that we need to really build these relations with the neighborhoods that we have around. And on the other side, we are still areas where we could develop more land. So, for example, I think Poplano, it's one of the examples. Now the city council last year they approved a master plan, like it's a kind of revision of the original 22 Act master plan, where they are allowed to make in more housing in these industrial areas that at the very beginning it was not allowed. No? So this idea of regenerating and rediscovering and redesigning the city, it's the future of Barcelona. We are not gonna make more Olympics. What we really need to create, it's a new city taking advantage of what we already have. No?
You were talking about that there was some change in a master plan. Yeah. So how many years it took to make this change? Because, for example, in Bratislava, in Slovakia, we are also talking a lot of years about changes in master plan, and it's quite impossible to achieve that, you know.
I think it's a common thing in cities. They have been talking for so many years about we need to do something with the 22 Act. Maybe we add too many industries, so no, that maybe we'll need more housing. And it took some years for the city council to arrive to this conclusion. No, so I think that urban planning, it's a kind of discipline it's very slow. It has a lot of legal implications, but we need to find, and that's why we try to provoke this conversation on how we make this urban planning dynamic. No, I feel that, or we feel that we have been doing wrong two things. The first one is evaluation. That sometimes we do, like we have a master plan in Barcelona from the 76 already until the new master plan last year was approved. For so many years, we have been running the city with a vision of the previous century. No, so it's something that we need to have the tools about evaluating the planning that we have, because we know that sometimes it took years and years to make new strategies, and in the middle, people, it's not working the same, not living the same, the families are not the same, the climate, it's not the same. So a lot of things happen. So we need to have these mechanisms to evaluate the planning. That is really important, because if we see that we are getting obsolete, we need to have the tools to react in a very, in a very agile way.
Especially maybe when the COVID situation came, so that was the really big stuff what happened, and everybody was stuck at home. We need to be at home. So can you tell us very briefly, for example, that how the situation is different now after this experience, if something changed quite radically?
I think that what we experience here, I don't know in Bratislava, but here in Spain, the lockdown was really severe. And I think it put in front of us a lot of lacks of the urban fabric. So I think that Barcelona, it's a city where really, we take the idea of having the public space as granted. And if your home is tiny, you know that you have public libraries, you have a park where maybe you can go and party your 6 years old party, with the friends in the school. So you have this infrastructure. And this infrastructure was somehow taken out from the citizens during COVID. And we really understand that we have a lot of deficiencies in our housing. That we have really, if I remember correctly, an average home in Barcelona, it's 45 square meters. That is super tiny as a kind of...
And it's 2-room flat.
Yeah. Like a regular flat, it's 45. We have, of course, like super luxury apartments, but the average is this, and that we know that we have a high, you said it, high inhabited density, that we have some areas in the city where we have vulnerable people. So, for example, in the office, what we tried to make during COVID, even though we were locked down at home, was to create a map trying to demonstrate these bad qualities that the city has. And it's a work that we have after published in mass context in the United States, which is called Geographies of the Lockdown, that try to really explain these deficiencies that we have in the city. So I think that in the after COVID, now I'm not that positive in the sense that I would like to see more changes, but we discover great things, that we have a better air quality if we don't have cars moving around the city. I think it's one of the big learnings that in our case that we were making this project, it was one of the discussions. It's the car responsible? Yes, it's the car is the responsible of the air pollution, something that we learn. I think that another positive things that we can take from COVID is that health, it's part now of the urban planning conversation. When we were making the master plan of Ciutat Vella in 2017, we were working together with the Public Health Agency of Barcelona, really trying to put in a master plan the idea that we need to guarantee that people can sleep at night, and that was really hard, at this moment, to work with doctors. It was like kind of first time thing, and now it's something that I think everyone really knows really clear that we need to create a healthy city, that we need to find these public spaces for active mobility, for people to be in a really good environment. So I think this is also a good learning, and also that we need to still rework in some issues related to spatial vulnerability, that not everyone is living in the same conditions in the city, and it's something that we need to be really aware, and we need to work as architects in trying to provide a better quality to these people. For me, the missing part, what I would like to have seen as a change is that we are very much relying as a city in just in one economy, which is tourism. So for us it was great, and I'm sorry to be saying that to see Barcelona without tourists. It was like having the city for ourselves.
You could see that during COVID, right?
Yeah, and because the tourism it's so massive, and really the city needs in terms of economy, it's a huge part, because we have hotels, we have tourist apartments, we have restaurants. A lot of people it's relying on that, So not being able to change this perspective, it's something that we are now seeing that, or like in the newspapers, they are already saying that this year we are going to reach more and more and more tourism that we had before COVID. We are 1.5 million people city. We were receiving before COVID 30 million of tourists per year. It's massive, So at which point this is an impact in the city that maybe we need to address,
Yeah, that's the big difference. 1.6 and 30 more. That makes a lot of people. at the same time in a city and using the city. That's totally right. But is there some solution how to reduce the tourists? It's like I know the example from Dubrovnik in Croatia.
Yeah, sure.
Especially
it's
after,
a great one.
Yes, it's a great one, but it was after the Game of Thrones, the series, that after that they were demolishing the city. So they actually reduced somehow the amount of people, but that's something what you cannot do here.
That's a really complicated issue, but it's very much related on, for example, we have other contexts in Spain where we have touristic cities, but they have other industries like the knowledge, or like even like the Basque Country, for example. We have industry. In Barcelona, we don't have productive activities which are not related to services. We have now, in the 22 ad, some tech or like clean or like tech or knowledge-driven companies, but tourism is the main industry, So I think it's a kind of weakness that we have as a city.
When we're talking about the gentrification and the neighborhoods, right now I'm living in Poblesek.
You are in the epicenter of gentrification.
Yes, but it's like next to the Montjuic, which is a really nice location. But next to this location, there is a Raval.
Yeah.
This is the city center. This is where the Rambla street is, and the Magba Museum and those public institutions, for example. But this Raval is like the most dense neighborhood, and let me say maybe one of the most dangerous in the evening. What is the future for this neighborhood when they are in these like super good locations? So I guess that some kind of gentrification and moving out those people because flat prices will get higher, they couldn't afford it, or I don't know. What do you see like the future for this neighborhood?
I think that you are touching one of the most complicated areas that we have in the city. First, we need to understand that Barcelona, it's not like Paris, it's not like Rome, it's not like London. We still have a lot of people living in the city center. And that makes a huge difference. Because the center, it's not something that we have abandoned. A lot of people want to live in the city centers. They like the qualities that they have in the city centers. There is a video that you can see on our website that we have done after we have been awarded by the European Commission with this Stars Prize for the Master Plan of Ciutat Vella, where there is Meritxell, that she lives in Ciutat Vella. She's from the neighborhood association, and she says, I like to smell the sea. I like to really, it's like the most historical part of Barcelona. It's a really nice place. But there we have a lot of social issues, in the sense that is the area where we have the highest inhabited density. We have the lowest qualities of the buildings. It's a neighborhood where people that will arrive to Barcelona as a migrant, they are gonna probably finish up there, and that means that we have a certain profile of young migrant male, and that really can get out from the system in a really quick way, and that's why it makes Raval, an area where it's difficult and where we have more conflicts. At the same time, it's an area where we have a lot of leisure activity, because traditionally, bars and discos, they are in the Plaza Real and in La Rambla, So it's an area that really is embodying a lot of things together, So maybe it's not the most gentrified. In the area, for example, where we have more tourist apartments, Poblesek, will be an example of an area where really we have this super high pressure of tourist apartments. Raval, it's not, because it has these other negative connotations that makes an area not so easy to gentrify. It's true that during when this renovation of Ciutat Vella, to create the Magba, to create some areas, have really make the traditional neighbors move away, and there was this also a renovation of population, more migrant arrive, So it's a really complicated case.
Since you are living in Barcelona and you are working and living in Poblenou, which spaces or which places in Barcelona do you like? Where do you like to go?
I really like to go to the sea. It's something that I really rediscover. In the sense, that it's touching with nature, somehow, in a city that it's so dense. It's a kind of relief, to really have this public space that everything, everyone can use, and it's something that after COVID, we rediscover a lot of our public spaces, and I think that we have really high value public spaces in Barcelona that embody different epochs of making public space, but at the very end, I think that this capacity that the city has had, to create this space for conviviality, for coexistence, are really good, I also like to go through Poblenou and see, how this industrial fabric that is still there, it's a kind of heritage that we already have in the city, and how there are still areas that need to be redone or construct, and this mixture between the new and the old. I think it's something that really interests me a lot now, and going, around this, And I think Montjuic and the mountains are areas which are really, really, really interesting. Montjuic, it has more this cultural sports connotation related, to museums and to the facilities of the Olympics. And it's a really interesting place to spend, the weekend in the gardens, or in Fundación Miró, really, because you have this mixture, even though citizens in Barcelona don't go at that much to the mountain, because we have a lot of problems to access the theater, because it's a mountain, it's like a urban mountain, but public transport is not arriving everywhere, so we have some issues, And all the neighborhoods like Balbona, Santandreu, all the areas in the east of the city, for me, are also now really interesting, how the city really is touching the mountain. I think you can discover there things which are quite unique.
Please give us some suggestions where people can go to understand the Barcelona and the vibe of the city, because a lot of people, when they are visiting Barcelona, they want to see Gaudi, they want to see La Rambla, and this is not Barcelona. It's just super crowded places, and this is not Barcelona for me.
No, you're totally right. I think if you want to see Barcelona, you need to go to Raval. It's one Barcelona. You need to go to the center of Eixample. That's another Barcelona. And I don't know, if you go to see Gaudí, you can go to, I don't know, Carrer Girona, or the market of Concepción, areas where really you will find this mixture that I was somehow trying to describe before. A neighborhood that already tourists know is Poble Sec, is Gracia, and this idea that as a city we had some neighbors, some old villages around, that then after they become neighborhoods, So and in Sarrià, in Santandreu, these are areas which maybe are not in the tourist, in the tourist books, that are really interesting, and where you can see a type of city which is really unique from Barcelona.
When we were talking about people participation, what people can do now to make their city better?
What we can do, it really try to build upon the social pacts. So we build in cities because we want to be in a community, we want to be together, but we need to put some rules, And I think that now the most potent, or the most powerful tool that we have, it's really to respect one, or some of the rules, For example, let me put 2 examples. The e-commerce. no? With COVID, everyone was at home, close. We need to buy things online, no? But we are seeing that this e-commerce, which is gonna really, be something that it's gonna be huge, no? And it's kind of growing every year. It's gonna make this, like the traditional commerce disappear, no? So we as citizens, we can decide if we want to shop a book on Amazon or go to our neighborhood and to the local library and buy the same book. No, I think it's about these small choices. No, it's also about trying to find the time. And I have a family, I have a job. I try to find my time to go to the market to buy the groceries and not to go on a app and make a really low pay rider that he sends me, or like that the food is gonna really directly arrive to me. So I think that as citizens we have choices that we can make in our everyday life. So it's really difficult to tell someone you cannot use your car to go to work, because there are a lot of situations in the city, but there are other individual decisions that can really have a high impact in the community. The delivery of food, I think this is also a trend that we are seeing in a lot of cities. It's already global, and that we try to regulate for the first time in Barcelona. We have drafted last year a master plan to control all these black or like ghost activities that are appearing in the city. Now we had these brands that arrive to the city. They create a supermarket with no people inside, and you can really, using an app, ask at 12 at night that you want some toilet paper, and they are gonna bring you at home. No, I'm not criminalizing people that really uses this, because I understand there are so many facets of people and situations, but I think that, as I use these two examples, but there are other examples that are going to put us in front of other interests, and we will need as citizens to negotiate.
I think that was a really nice answer to the end, and let's move to the rubric, which is at the end of the each podcast. So those are the same questions for the each guest. So question number 1 is, what is the most favorite failure?
I would say that not being the architect I was raised to be, in the sense that I think that when Pablo and myself were studying, we were kind of ready to build architects, you need to really like architecture, you really like to like buildings, to really, like constructive details. I didn't like anything at all. So that, not that time, neither now, if you ask me. But in the sense that I suffer a lot during my studies, because I really like urban design, urban planning, and even though we had a really, really good, as I mentioned, really good professors and the pathway, I was kind of trained, to this, So I think somehow, this negative feeling that I had, not to be, the architect I was supposed to be, it really has turned into something really positive, because we have learned that as architects we can do a lot more. We can really play this role as mediators with other professions. I have friends that also write about architecture, that they are in the urban planning, that they do communication, engagement, public participation. So I think it's a positive failure.
What is the worst personal quality?
My worst? I'm perfectionist. I'm really ambitious sometimes, and that, yeah. Sometimes being perfectionist is not that amazing.
And what is the best personal quality?
I try to listen to people. I think it's something that I do really, really, really well. And I feel that people sometimes approaches me because I try to listen to them. So, yeah, being a good listener.
Flat or the house?
That's a great question. Flat.
Why?
It depends. I think that you're going to ask me this in 10 years. Maybe I change my mind. But I really like to live in cities. I really like to really have the feeling of density, to having everything that it's needed around. But of course, having a house with the garden, and so other qualities, it's kind of tentative, like something which can be appealing. But I think that we really need to be cities activists.
Are you living now in a flat?
Yeah, I'm living in a flat.
Because we're talking about the average flat, 45 meters square. So how big is your flat?
I would say it's 80 square meters.
80, nice.
But it's really packed, well compact. It's really nice.
Luxury.
Yeah. And what I think that the best quality is that we have an environment around which is providing everything we need, and that I think not every citizen in Barcelona can say. There are few cars, we have access to goods, we have access to education, we have access to culture, to nature. So these basic things that we need as citizens. It's a quiet place, still not that gentrified, so yeah.
What is the most favorite dish?
I have been studying in Rome. Just to put the context of my response, I'm not going to say any cacio e pepe can be, pasta col pesto. So I really go for Italian food. I really enjoy eating. So yeah, I think we are really lucky here in Barcelona. We have good fish, we have good vegetables, and yeah. But I will go for a pasta, pizza kind of thing.
And do you know that here in Barcelona, you supposed to have the best pizzeria in Europe? And have you been there in Sartoria Panettieri?
Yeah, sure. It's one of my. Actually, my mom was suggesting a venue for her birthday, and I was suggesting her there. So yeah.
At the beginning of this podcast, you had the opportunity to try our traditional Slovak candies called kávenky and kakaoverezi. So, which one do you prefer?
I will go for the chocolate, but really enjoy the coffee one, which are also one of my two favorite things. But coffee. I don't know in which group of the Slovakian people you're gonna put me, but I go for coffee.
So it means that kávenky, because they are made from coffee, let me say, or with coffee flavor.
Exactly.
So we are almost at the end of the episode, so there is only one question at the end. I'm sure that you have noticed that architects, they really like to wear black clothes. So why do you think that architects wear black?
I have studied in a world with black architects. You can now know. Pablo, it's normally a yellow or green architect. I think it's something that has changed in the sense that I like to think that architects, we are gonna, with the years, get closer to the people and really be more colorful. No, really, for me, black, it's about this idea of seriousness, and that can create a kind of detachment with the really our end users, which is the people, no? And it's something we try to break. You will see that normally when we lecture or something, we wear flowers or we wear colors, because it's something that even I think with the personal image we try to transmit that we can be close.
Mm-hmm. So you do it like consciously.
Yeah, but it's this idea that for me, like, an architect, like it's a man in black. No, it's a man in black also. No, and I think that now we are in another mood. No, that more women are architects, more you can see, now, for example, in the Venice Biennale, you can see, like Afro-American people making, like this peak or like being curators, So I think that this image of the male, white, wearing black architect has really changed in the recent years, and it's something that really needs to evolve.
Let me thank you very much that you accepted my invitation, and it was really nice to talk about Barcelona on a city scale, because usually I talk with architects, so it's more concentrated to the building, but it was really nice to talk with you about the whole city, and I just tried to be quite good in the discussion since I live here for 1 month and a half, so thank you very much again that you had your time for me.
It was my pleasure, Peter. Really. Thank you.
Kvalitná architektúra sa nezaobíde bez kvalitného stavebného materiálu. Všetko pre vašu stavbu a tento podcast vám prináša Wienerberger.